Hey everyone, welcome to session 2, where Ben and I talk to you about the Pardot Specialist exam. Pardot Special exam is pretty complex, so we broke this into 3 sessions. So here's Ben, here's me. Feel free to reach out to us on Twitter. I am at Pardot Pro on Twitter. Ben is at Ben Lamoth. Also LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to us. And if you're in the Pardashian Slack group, please feel free to drop us a message. We're happy to help you with questions. So quick link to take you out to the specialist exam guide. So this is where Salesforce says what's on the exam, links you to Trailhead about the various things, to help you study for it. This is a bit.ly basically to help you get there faster. And we'll be happy to distribute slides later. Just let us know. Plus Ben's going to post recording. So I'm going to dive in to Pardot forms, form handlers, and landing pages, which is 20% of your exam. So a quick refresher, the exam is 60 graded questions plus 5 ungraded questions. You have like 90 minutes, I think, to take the exam. And 20% of the questions will be about this topic, basically. And Ben's going to talk to us about email and email templates in a little bit. So the exam guide says these 2 bullet points to know that questions you'll be asked will have generally this sort of topic. Given a scenario, identify the capabilities, use cases, and interpret metrics of Pardot forms, and identify the capabilities, use cases, and interpret reporting metrics for landing pages. So basically, how do you use Pardot forms, form handlers, landing pages, and how do you interpret Pardot reports about those things? And then a tricky thing about that is how do you know which report to look at? So I'll have some helpful tips for you, and I'm going to walk you through the various pages. So first off, do you pick a Pardot form or you pick a Pardot form handler? What's the difference? So a Pardot form is what I generally default to, because Pardot form is a self-contained form. They give you an iframe embed code that you can stick on your website or any web page. The main benefits to me is that marketing very easily controls the fields and completion actions on a Pardot form. And basically what I mean by that is, like, let's say you want to add a question to your Pardot form. Cool. You can just go in and add a field to the form, hit save, and it automatically updates. Everywhere that form is used, that form updates. Whereas if you have a website form, you may have to go to a web developer to get that field added to your web form. So Pardot form is super easy for marketing to control what fields appear and what order they appear and things like that. It's also a super easy way to apply your Pardot cookie to the people who submit that form. A form handler is basically, it doesn't have a front end at all. It is not a form itself. It simply accepts data from another source, which means you must pair it with something else, which is usually you must pair it with a form built on your website. So if you have, for example, a WordPress website or a Drupal website, you can build a form in either of those platforms, either of those CMS tools. And then let's say you're using Gravity forms with WordPress. The Gravity form gets created, and then you say, hey, Gravity form, submit this data to this URL, and you plug in your Pardot form handler URL. It's definitely more complicated. There's more things that can go wrong. If you're not a web developer, it may be tricky for you to do things like adding new fields. It may cost money to add more fields if you need to pull in a web developer. It's also somewhat less reliable and when it comes to applying the Pardot cookies to people who submit those forms. And what I mean by that is a form handler can place a Pardot cookie on the browser when the form is submitted, but it basically cookies the thing that is doing all the work. So is the visitor's web browser doing all the work? That's called a client-side post. Or is your website form posting to a website server, and then the server is forwarding that data on to somewhere else? You're basically going to cookie the website server, which is not what you want. So that's why I'm saying it can be tricky to apply Pardot cookies to people when you use a website form plus a form handler. There is a great, and I have this linked elsewhere, but this checklist, this great checklist talks about, do you pick a Pardot form or you pick a Pardot form handler? And it kind of hits the big topics. you can see that some of the things here, both systems will work. Like Pardot can reject email addresses that are from free providers like Gmail and Yahoo and things like that. Both systems will use email address as the deduplication. But the Pardot form has built-in protection against spam bots. And the Pardot form handler doesn't. You have to build that on the front end, which means you have to build it on your website form and basically do some logic on the front end that says, hey, is this a bot? Yes or no. If it is a bot, don't submit it to Pardot. You have to build that. So Pardot form handlers don't come with any out-of-the-box bot protection. Pardot form handlers do integrate with third-party forms like your website form. So if there are specific things that you need your form to do 3 layers of dependencies, not just the simple like what country are they from, then show the state or province. That's only 1 layer. But if you then want to drill down to, oh, and show me the county, Pardot can't do that. You have to use a more advanced tool, which would be your website form. So there are good reasons to use your website forms and post the data to a form handler. I find most people don't need that level, but some people do. So there are good reasons. I'm not saying never do it. Just know what each tool can and can't do. This one line item that says maintains current lead flow, I find sort of not correct, although this is the approved checkbox that I copied from the Salesforce help article. I don't personally think that's correct. A Pardot form can push leads over to Salesforce just as a Pardot form handler can. It's just this next line item about integrating with web to lead forms. That's kind of what they're talking about. Pardot form cannot force a new lead to be created. It will always deduplicate. Whereas if you use a website form posting to a Pardot form handler, Pardot can then ping a Salesforce web to lead form URL, and that can auto create a brand new lead, which is probably a duplicate lead. But that functionality does exist with form handlers and does not with a standard Pardot form. Here's the rest of the checkboxes from here. So form views and error data. Both systems you can see on the prospect level audits page that Ben showed us last time, like what fields were changed. But if you're going to use a Pardot landing page, which I'm going to show you later, that's you only use a Pardot form. If you have to make any sort of criteria, rule-based decision based on, did somebody view this form versus did somebody complete this form? Form views are only available with your Pardot form. They're not available with the form handlers. But both systems can send autoresponder emails. Both of them can redirect to a different success page, a thank you page. But Pardot forms have a specific little section of like personalized content you can display. I'll show you that. And then the Pardot prospect resubscribe process can be triggered by a Pardot form. There are some workarounds in the community to do it with a form handler, but like the approved way is Pardot forms do it natively, form handlers do not. So if you're going to take your specialist exam, this series of checkboxes is a good one to look over and review and understand, what the differences are. So again, Pardot forms, I'm going to go through each of these individually. What is a Pardot form? What is a Pardot form handler? What is a landing page? And we'll talk about the screens and what you see and pros and cons of both of them. And also I'll show you what the reporting inside Pardot looks like. So Pardot forms, again, they're standalone forms where you don't need to pull in a website developer. If you are handy with HTML and CSS, you can customize how the form looks, but you have a functional form out of the box. It just might be ugly. But you also don't need to call in your website developer to add fields. All you need to do is grab the embed code that Pardot gives you, and you can pop it onto any web page. So this is like I said, the way I default is to use Pardot forms with the iframe embed. Because it's just so easy for me to quickly respond to a request to add a new field to a form. So looking at Pardot Lightning, here's how you get to forms. If you go to the Pardot Lightning app, you go to the Content tab, and you choose Forms. You see on the left-hand side, the menu, choose Forms. Form Handlers is the next one down. But this is going to be creating a Pardot iframe form. So we would click Add Form, or we would edit an existing form. And we go through the Pardot wizard. There's 5 steps, and I'm going to show you each of these with the screenshots, since I know people don't have a Pardot account. You can't like dig in and see them. This sort of thing is where I'm saying, like, if you want to get the slides later, we'll distribute the slides, and you can kind of study what's on each page. So when you create a form, when you create most Pardot assets, the first step of any wizard is like to give it a name. You tie it to a Pardot campaign, which with connected campaigns turned on is really a Salesforce campaign. So this form, Pardot asset, belongs to the campaign. So if you go look at the campaign page, you'll be able to see here are the Pardot assets that belong to this campaign and get some reporting on them inside Salesforce that way. And then also talked at length about campaigns in our last session. You can go watch that video to learn more about what we mean by the importance of a campaign and why does a form belonging to a campaign make a difference. But in general, this first page, you're going to give it a name. You can stick it in a folder. You don't have to. You can apply tags. And then out of the box, it's going to use your tracker domain that is verified for your website. I'm in a demo org, so you're just seeing Linuxsoft. You're not seeing my Pardot Pro one. But your tracker domain box will probably pre-fill with your custom tracker domain. So here's the second step of the wizard. So here, out of the box, your brand new forms come with first name, last name, company, email. I'm going to eliminate company, and I'm going to add country instead. And then I'm going to show you how to do progressive profiling and how to do a dependent field and what the various things happen and how you configure them. So if you want to edit an existing field, you can click this little icon my arrow is pointing at, or if you want to add a new field, you can press the button. And the same step, it's still a step wizard 2, but now I am, you get a pop-up that says, tell me about your field, and there's tabs across the top, and I'm on the basic tab. So first arrow that I'm pointing at is what Pardot field is it? It's the country field. The next one down is the type. Okay, it's going to be a drop-down field. I'm not letting them free text type in United States or USA or United States of America. I'm giving them a specific drop-down, or Salesforce calls it a pick list. I'm kind of ignoring the top box. That's the label. You can change that if you want. It's what the person sees on the front end of the form. So you could change that to say, like, enter your country, and they will see the text, enter your country, and the field on the back end is still just plain old country. So don't worry about it too much. Also, the checkbox down at the bottom, is this field required, yes or no? I usually do include them as required fields. I just didn't check the box here. So since I chose this to be a drop-down type, I'm going to jump to the tab that says values. So when you have fields of certain types, like a drop-down or a radio button or a checkbox, you have to give them values. You can't just say, type in your stuff. That's a text field. So when it comes to the drop-down type things, you probably want to pre-fill it with, the names of countries, the names of US states or Canadian provinces. This box at the top will let you easily pre-fill things. But I'm going to jump back one page, and on this basic tab, if you have customized the values that you want to show up in a form, see this button on the right side that says load default data? Your master level fields that you created for country, you can click that button and say you changed from the spelling United States and made it USA. Clicking load default data will mean that on this page, instead of saying United States, it'll pull in your master level settings and it'll change. So if you customized your fields here, you want to make sure that you click that load default settings tab, not necessarily pre-filling. You won't really get a question on test about that, but that's a fun trick. Okay, so now that I've pre-filled my values, I'm going to go to this advanced tab. And this is where you can set up some customizations on how you want the field to behave. Do you want the field to always display even if the person has previously completed it? So let's say that I am seeing a form for the first time. I see the fields for first name, last name, company, email address. What if on the second visit, I'm a cookied person, do I want them to see the first name field again? If yes, then I would check this box to always display even if previously completed, so that the person would see the field because out of the box, Pardot's default behavior on Pardot forms is always to hide fields when a cookied person is visiting a page and it's got a Pardot iframe form. Fields that already have data in them are hidden. And it doesn't matter if they've filled out this form or another form, or if the data synced down from Salesforce. Pardot just cares there is any data in this field, I am going to hide it. So this is your option to always display the field, even if previously completed. Do you want it to be blank? Do you, out of the box, Pardot will pre-fill my first name into that field. These are your sections where you can choose those settings. On the progressive tab, this is where things get interesting. This is where you get to configure, is progressive profiling turned on or not? So remember, I am creating a country field. I am saying I want the field to have maybe 15 fields, and country is going to be one of them. But 15 fields is kind of a lot for a free download, right? I'm not applying for a mortgage. So maybe the first time they see a form, I only want them to see first name, last name, and email address. And then after they get cookied and they see another form, then you want them to start seeing additional fields. So this is where I'm going to set up the progressive profiling so that they see country only if there is already data in the email field. Email is a required field on every prospect. So this setting basically means that you'll only see the country field if you're already cookied, because every prospect with a cookie will have data in the email address. So this is where I'm going to configure my various fields to only show this field only if there's already data in another field. And then this one is one of my favorite features. I've been around since they actually rolled this one out. It didn't used to exist. It's called a dependent field. So my previous example is if you're trying to gather address or location data about them, and they say they're in the United States, and you then want to ask them what is their state. That's one level of dependency. Pardot can do that on its forms. So that's where I'm configuring this. So when this field, the drop-down field equals United States, show me this other field, state. And if I want to set up additional items, I can see the add another item. So I can say like, okay, now I have another custom field, not the state field, but another custom field that says like Japanese prefectures. I could say when this field equals Japan, now show this field Japanese prefectures. You can totally do that. You can do whatever you want. You can set up that when this field shows United States, show this field state, and when this field shows United States, show this field phone number. You can show them both. I'm just choosing to show the one item. So that's dependent fields. It's very, very helpful. So now that I've set those up, here is what my form wizard looks like with those fields added. I added country and I added state. Notice they're not bold and dark. They're kind of grayed out. The colors there and the little C in parentheses, that doesn't mean copyright. That means conditional. They conditionally show. And then the D next to state means that it's dependent on another field. And you can see off to the right side, it says dependent on country. So this is how my form is set up. All of these fields are going to show, except that these grayed out ones are only going to show conditionally. And you'll see, I'm going to show you the form in a little bit here. But we're going to zip to the look and feel tab, and there's different sections in here. So we have the above form content, below form content, styles, and advanced. I'm going to show you those later. So what's interesting about the above form and below form content is that you can use merge fields in these text areas. There is a little icon that says merge field, and you can use the stuff that you might use in your emails that say like, if the person has data in the first name field, give them a personalization, otherwise show them this other thing. Here I'm adding personalization that's going to say, hi, first name, but if the first name doesn't have any data, it's going to omit that. It's just going to show them, please fill out the short form to email the PDF to yourself. We'll see that in action in a little bit. So the top of this is where if you want to change the colors of your form and your buttons, you don't want it to be a gray submit button. You want it to be a red, or I have a purple button because my colors are purple for Pardot Pro. You can add HTML and CSS to every form here using the layout template linked in this step. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but just know that if you want to add, design, more than basic design to your forms, the HTML and CSS go in the layout template. So here's the below form content, same as the above form. Here I'm saying just all fields are required, but you can totally use merge tags there if you want to. Here's the styles tab. So if you are not doing any sort of custom HTML and CSS with the layout template at the top, you can do some very, very basic styles. Here I have changed my label alignment so that instead of on the left, like you see here, label alignment is on the left and the box is on the right, that they're going to be stacked on top of each other. Check boxes and radio buttons are the same. Instead of saying, and I don't have any in my example, but instead of having like check boxes side by side, they're going to be stacked. And also I'm changing the required field from being this like wonky little star to being the asterisk character. And then this advanced tab, I highly recommend setting this checkbox for including the not you link to allow visitors to reset the form. And you'll see that in action in a little bit. But two other things that I want to point out here are that you can enable kiosk or data entry mode on your Pardot forms, which means that somebody filling out this form will not be cookied as they fill it out. This is ideal if you're giving somebody a form like at a trade show, like quickly enter your stuff and don't cookie the person because this tablet is going to be reused by other people, not like on my phone, right? And then this third item on enabling explicit bot protection using reCAPTCHA, you can turn this on for everybody who views a form. But one thing I want to call out is that this is not the only bot protection that Pardot has on forms. There is a sort of hidden bot protection that is always on and you cannot turn it off. And basically Pardot monitors traffic looking at your Pardot forms. And it says, hey, somebody is kind of hitting your Pardot forms over and over, or hey, somebody is visiting your stuff from a suspicious IP address and there's a lot of suspicious traffic. I'm going to go ahead and show a reCAPTCHA anyway, even though you didn't explicitly turn it on. So that's bot protection. Like if you saw my checkboxes in the first series of slides, that's the bot protection that comes out of the box with Pardot. You can explicitly enable it for anyone, but it's always on in the background for suspicious behavior. And you may not see it unless you're an admin who's doing like a lot of testing on a form. It may pop up and show it to you. But if you're doing like a normal amount of testing, it usually doesn't trip you up. So just know that it's there, it's in the background, even if you don't turn this checkbox on. Here is the next step of the form wizard, completion actions. And again, you can use merge tags. This is the top half of the page. This is the thank you content, where one of those checkboxes I showed you said that like Pardot forms can show you like a custom thank you message in a Pardot form. This is what it's talking about. You have some other options, like instead of showing this message, you can redirect them to another URL. That's the checkbox at the bottom you see there. And then here's the bottom half of this page. This is where you're going to add completion actions. Currently, everybody who submits a form has these actions applied to them. So everybody who submits this form is going to be added to the CRM campaign about the website contact us form, and they're going to have the status of connected. You can add additional actions like send them an autoresponder email, add them to a static list, toggle a field a certain way. You can say like assign via Salesforce assignment rules. All those completion actions apply to everybody who submits this form. There is a feature that is not out yet, coming in the summer release, that's going to allow us to configure conditional completion actions. If you take your test soon, those questions won't be on your test because as of right now, completion actions fire on every form submission. Okay, so final quick review. This exists. I mostly just click past it and go on. Here, once you save everything, here is the form that you just created. Go to the top right and click the little down arrow and click the View HTML Code button. And you'll get this snippet of code that you can take to your website and put on the page. And then this is what the form looks like. You can see that I've drawn the dotted line saying, this is my above the form content. I'm an uncookied person because I've typed my stuff in, but I haven't hit the submit button. So I'm uncookied. So you're seeing the personalization for my first name is not there. You can see my stuff is in purple. My shapes of my boxes are rounded corners. My button is purple with white text. All of that came from the HTML and CSS and the layout template. And then you can see the below form content at the bottom there. Here's me having submitted the form once. You can see it's personalized because I'm cookied. You can see the not you link. So you can see these things in action. And then progressive profiling in action, which means that the fields I filled out on this page, right? First name, last name, hidden here. And now I'm seeing country. And when I choose United States, I get the new box for state to show up because that's the dependent field in action. Okay, so zipping through a lot because we have a lot to cover and I want to make sure Ben has time. So reporting on Pardot forms versus form handlers versus landing pages can get very tricky because it all seems to kind of blend together in your mind, especially when you say, hey, Pardot forms can go on Pardot landing pages. Where do I look for the reporting? The rule of thumb that I follow is what is the outermost Pardot asset they submitted? If you put an iframe on your website, the iframe is the asset. There is no outermost Pardot asset. So you look for the form reporting to see the people who submitted the form. Later on, when I talk about landing pages, I'm going to revisit this and I'm going to talk about, okay, you went through the landing page wizard, you embedded this same form on your landing page, but the outermost item is the landing page. It surrounds the Pardot form and the landing page is a Pardot asset. Therefore, you look at the landing page for reporting. So think about what like surrounds this asset. Is this thing surrounded by another Pardot thing? Yes or no? And that'll tell you where to look for your reporting. Helpful links. And then here's where I want to show you, this is where you find Pardot reports in Pardot Lightning. This is not your Salesforce reports page. That is the next tab over that just says reports. This one is Pardot reports. So if you go into Pardot reports, and then on the left-hand menu, you go to marketing assets, and then you choose between like forms. Form handlers are technically lower down on this page. I am not showing you that right now because it just gets messy and confusing. But you can go into each individual form and you'll see a page like this. This is just the blown up view. I cropped out everything. But this will show you the people who submitted and submitted over time. So this is a pretty interesting page. Honestly, I don't spend a lot of time on these because forms are only good for maybe an event specific thing and then I kind of never look at them again. But be familiar with, you know, here's where you do the reporting because your test will probably have some questions about, you know, they submitted a Pardot form. Do I get my reporting from? And then they'll try and throw you a red herring about where you get your reporting from. So just be aware of what the pages look like and what the Pardot forms reporting looks like. Okay, I'm going to zip into Pardot form handlers. So as I mentioned up at the top, form handlers are not standalone forms. They have no front end, which means that you must use them with another item and that item injects data into them. And that's usually a website form, meaning a form built on your website platform gets submitted, that form sends data to the Pardot form handler. You can also use them with API code that sends data to the form handler URL, or you can use Zapier or Tray.io or similar tools to send data to the form handler, and it's what's called a webhook. If you're in technical speak, it's considered a webhook. Pardot form handlers are kind of just dumb. They really just, excuse me, they really just accept data from some other source, and you're just telling Pardot, hey, out of this string of data, this piece means email address, this piece means first name, this piece means last name. And I'm going to show you how that mapping is set up. So similar to last time, under content, we go to form handlers, and then a form handler, again, asks you what campaign does this belong to? It's going to ask you some questions about, do you want it to forward to another location? That's the success location at the bottom. I'm just sending it, this is like the out of the box settings, but you can say, if this form handler is submitted, enter a custom success location, and that success location could be the URL of a Salesforce web to lead form. So basically someone would fill out a website form, it would ping the Pardot form handler, the form handler would ping the website, the web to lead form, and that would create a brand new lead in Salesforce. You know, you can do it. People do it all the time because that's what their lead flow wants to be. You don't have to, but you can. So here's the settings. Again, you have like kiosk mode, good stuff like that. And then here's completion actions. So just like the form that we saw, everybody who goes through this form handler is going to get these same completion actions applied to them. And then down below at the very bottom is where we set up what fields are on your website form that you want to map to Pardot. Something to understand is that your website form may have fields that you don't care about. You only care about passing 5 fields to Pardot, but your website form is also passing data to somewhere else. You don't have to collect every single field from your website form and collect it in Pardot. So you can just set up the fields you care about. So here's where, excuse me, sorry, my voice is going. So here's where you can add new fields or you can edit existing fields. And I'm going to edit the field for first name that I have here. So when you click edit, you get this pop-up. The external field name is going to appear in your website code. And I'm going to show you that in a second. But it's the name field as it appears in your website code. The prospect field item is your Pardot field. So you could, if you wanted to, like collect the last name and stick it in the first name field. I don't recommend doing that, but you could. You can also do stuff like, oh, my website is collecting a field. I don't really have a Salesforce field for it, so I'm going to stick it in like the comments field. You can do that perfectly fine. But this is how you set up the mapping of, okay, when this data comes from this other source, this string of data is going to go into the first name field. You set up this mapping. Here's what my form looks like on the front end, right? So my website form says, leave me a message. I'm collecting the name, the email, the message. When I view my source code in my Chrome browser, I can right click on it and inspect what I have highlighted here, the name equals fname. That is what I put on this previous slide. The external field name from the form code is what went in here. So that's what you're mapping, okay? If you're not a website person, it gets tricky, but that's what's important to know is that you're mapping this name from the front end of the form, the public, what everybody sees, you're mapping this to tell Pardot, oh, collect this data and put it in the Pardot field. Links about, advanced features, troubleshooting. Again, we'll distribute slides later. So reporting on form handlers. Again, so think of it this way. What is the outermost Pardot asset they submitted? Well, they didn't submit anything. They submitted your website form, which is posting to the form handler. So you look on the form handler for the reporting. Reporting looks very much the same. You can go to the Pardot reports tab. Form handlers is at the bottom. I promised you it was there and I wasn't showing it to you because I wanted to zoom in. Same sort of reporting. You get to see, this is all time and when people have been submitted, who it's been, the last date it was submitted as one of the columns. You can see all of this same stuff in the Pardot reporting. Okay, zipping ahead to landing pages. What are they and why do we even care? So a Pardot landing, so if I have a Pardot form and I have my website and it can post to a form handler, like why do I even care about Pardot landing pages? So you may not use landing pages heavily, but they're a feature that are there and they exist and they have very specific uses. So in some companies, maybe marketing doesn't control the website. Maybe you have to go through so many hoops to get a page added to the website, but marketing is responsible for collecting, we put out pay-per-click ads and we need to collect to get a demo, or we need to put out a webinar or a registration for a webinar or something like that, something short-term. Marketing can often spin up a Pardot landing page faster than they can spin up a web page if they don't control the website. So it is a single web page. It is independent of your main website, but it is going to be able to use your custom tracker domain, your vanity URL. So it's not going to register like with a long like go.pardot.com ugly URL. You'll be able to brand it with like go.pardotpro.com / webinar1, very clean short URL. Technically, landing pages also have A/B testing. They call it multivariate testing, but it's very hard to use and it's much more HTML focused. So I'm not going to show you any of that, and it's really not going to be on this exam. It might be on the consultant exam, but I don't even think so. Important point here that I mentioned before is that landing pages, usually you embed a Pardot form into them. And I'm going to show you the wizard and where that happens. And then when you do embed a Pardot form into them using the landing page wizard, you go to the landing page reporting, not the Pardot form reporting. So inside of content, in the Pardot Lightning app, you go to landing pages, you make a new landing page. Here's the wizard again. I'm only showing you like half of the screen because I ran out of space, and you've kind of seen them all before, but like you'll pick a Salesforce campaign. This page will have like your vanity URL. So I said like you can have it pretty, be like go.pardot.com/webinar1. You would put that on this page near the bottom. Step 2 of the wizard is where you add your Pardot form. So that form that I made before, I would click this radio button that says use existing form and just go find that form that I made before. So a very big tip for you here is that you can use the same Pardot form on multiple Pardot landing pages. So let's say I have the same asset that I want to put out in like a social post, and I want to put it in a pay-per-click ad. I can spin up different landing pages for each item, use the same form and the same completion actions like send autoresponder email, but I can direct them to different traffic locations. So I can direct the pay-per-click ad to one landing page URL, and I can direct my social traffic to another landing page URL, all built in Pardot, 2 different pages, use the exact same form. So you don't have to create a form for every single landing page. You can reuse them. So step 3 here, you have Pardot comes with stock templates, which are ugly and are not responsive. So I'm showing you my custom layout templates that I've uploaded, and I'm going to pick my thing that's on the left side, the landing page there. Here is where I can customize, see all these dotted lines around like the headline and the body text. I can click into those and customize everything. So if I click into that main text area, I get a WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get editor, where I can customize the text. So this is where I'm saying that you can reuse these landing page templates over and over again for different things with different different body text even. And what you would do for A/B testing is you would create a different landing page with like a different headline, and then set up what Pardot calls a multivariate test to test the headline against each other. It's pretty cool. If you want to play with it, I encourage it, but it really won't be on your test, so I'm not going to go into it. Notice the form does not have a dotted line around it because we set it on step 2. You're not going to customize the form any further here. You picked the form on step 2. So here's the WYSIWYG again. When I save, I quickly review. This is a useless page. You won't see anything helpful on it. This is my page on the front end. So here I'm a cookied person. So you're only seeing, you know, my email address because I filled in all my other stuff. That's the form that I picked in step 2, but because I'm already cookied, it's hiding. That's the progressive profiling in action. And then here you can see that you can just reuse the same page content over and over again, change the body text. You can put an image in it if you want. If you're, you know, you can do all sorts of cool stuff to do landing pages. Here is where, again, how do you report on a Pardot landing page? What is the outermost Pardot asset they submitted? Well, they submitted a form, but it's embedded in a Pardot landing page with step 2 of that landing page wizard. So the outermost item is the landing page. It surrounds the Pardot form and kind of takes over. So you want to look at the landing page report. People who fill out a form embedded on a landing page are going to show up in the landing page report. They won't show up in the Pardot form report. That's why I'm kind of hammering this here. So know where to go in the reporting. Read the question very carefully about what did they actually submit to know where you go to report on, because there will probably be a question about that and where reporting is found on Pardot reports. So links, there's actually a trailhead for Pardot landing pages in Lightning, which is pretty cool. So I linked that there. I'm going to turn it over to Ben. Stop sharing. And turn it
Thanks for all that. I know that was a lot, but you definitely got through in a really good amount of detail. I know that we're running up on it, so I will try to kind of get through this as quickly as I can, while still also being kind of giving you the kind of data information that you need. for a prep session, which means we might go a little over, but I will do what I can to make that not happen. I'm going to now share my screen, and yeah, okay. All right, so what I'm going to be talking about is email marketing. So that is a pretty heavy topic. As you see, it's 20% of the exam, so 20% of the questions. And it covers three main topics: be able to distinguish between an email and an email template, given a scenario, identify the capabilities and use cases for email, and distinguish between the metrics collected in Pardot email reporting. First, I want to talk about what's the difference between an email template and an email draft. So an email template is anything that you build in any email that you build in Pardot has the foundation of a template in some way. So when you create an email, like a list email, for example, to send a single send, it's going to have the foundation of a template. It's a reusable email design that you can base new emails on. And after you design it and build it, you can personalize an email for each recipient. So you have a template, you want to use it for a newsletter that you're sending. You can change the newsletter template once you're in a list building mode. And I'll talk about that a little later. But once you're in that mode, you can make changes to the template, and those changes don't cycle down to the template itself. The template remains the same. So you can remove things from the template when you're trying to build an active or live email. The template is meant to be kind of a guide. Like, here's at least what the general recommended look and feel is for this email. You can also use the other great thing about email templates is that they are used for more than just sending list emails. An email template is what is the foundational use for automations, triggered emails. Email template drafts are templates that haven't been published yet. So you go through the process of building a template, but you haven't clicked publish. Clicking publish means that it is now available for use in a list email or whatever the use case is that you design it for. Similarly, a list email draft is an email that you've gone through the process of building, but you haven't formally sent it yet. You've just hit save, but you're not ready. So what you'll see email template draft and list email draft. Those are emails that you've gone through the process of building, but have not formally committed to either publishing it live or sending it. Emails are created once and can be copied and edited, but can't be reused like a template. So you can create a list email and save it as a draft and then clone that draft and create another email using the foundations of that draft, but it doesn't work in the same way as a template where it's a kind of universally available for a specific use case. The template is the foundation, and then you can apply it for either an automation or you can use it as a foundation for a future list email. When you are in the email Lightning app, when you're looking to do Pardot email in the Lightning app, these are the steps that you would take to do that. You click into Pardot email, and this is what you see. You have drafts, scheduled, sent, A/B tests, your templates, tests, preference page, unsubscribe page, and the first one is drafts, and the drafts are going to be list email templates or list email drafts that haven't been sent yet. You do have the ability to schedule an email, and any of your pending scheduled emails will appear there. You'll also be able to see a list of all the emails that you sent, all of the list emails that you've sent, not templates, just all your sent list emails. You click that and you'll see all of your sent to date, and you'll also be able to see all the lists that have been associated to it. You can also, if your account has A/B testing, you can then click A/B tests to see to get a view into all of the A/B tests that have been run on your account, and you can segment it by over a period of time, by campaigns, etc. Your templates is where you're going to be able to see all of your email templates. This is what's been selected. So you see it's blue here, so it says templates. This is what that view looks like. You'll see your published email templates here and your email drafts down here, your email template drafts. Published means it's available for use, either to build an email or to select for a a completion action, automation rule, something to that effect. A draft means that you've gone through the process, but you have not formally activated it or published it. Any of your test emails that you've sent. So if you, when you are testing an email, one of the options is there's a drop down where you can select to send to a test list. And any of your test list emails will appear here. Excuse me. So you'll be able to see all of the tests that have been sent from that account over time. Number 7 here is your preferences center. So you can develop many different preference centers if you want, but all of them will be there, and you'll be able to see all the lists that have been associated to it, and the names of them. You can delete them if you need to, but ultimately all the different preference centers are going to be there. And these preference centers are things that you would add to a list email that you're building to send. When you are building an email on Pardot, you must have either an unsubscribe link or a preferences center. You can have both, but you can't have none. One or the other has to be there. Number 8 here is the unsubscribe page. So this is this is where there isn't as much to do here. You can do some customization, but ultimately this is a page that people will see when they click unsubscribe. You can do some customization around the messaging here. And I believe that this is also where you would enable what's called a 2-click unsubscribe, though I don't know if that would be on the exam. I don't know if that's too new. But there is a feature called 2-click unsubscribe where you can basically you add a layer of kind of prevention just to validate that people intend to opt out. And this is one of the things that this does is it's intended to stop bots from auto opting people out. It's basically asking for some kind of human initiated action to confirm the intention to opt out. This is what you see when you go into the email template building process. It's going to ask you to name your email. This is an internal name. So I would recommend using any kind of naming convention that makes sense for what you're doing. You have the option to tag, and I think in a previous session I talked about tagging being a organization tool. So if you would like to, if you have a kind of global tagging naming conventions, and you want to be able to organize assets by a specific association at the tag level, you can enter a tag here. You don't have to. What you do have to do is you do have to put it in a folder. Typically, a folder is going to be auto-selected already. So in this case, in this dev org, it's uncategorized / email templates. I would recommend creating some kind of folder structure, because otherwise you'll just have hundreds and hundreds of assets in uncategorized email template without any actual correlation to a campaign. Speaking of campaign, you do have to select a specific campaign to associate. Assuming that you have connected campaigns enabled, this is actually a Salesforce campaign, but you must select a campaign and then select a tracker domain. So you would have created and validated a tracker domain already. If you haven't, strongly recommend it. Pardot is making it so you have to sooner rather than later, meaning getting off of the go.pardot.com domain and into something that is aligned to your organization or company. And so you just want to select the tracker domain, and the tracker domain is what when you send an email, the links to the links that you select to put in an email, this is what they'll be wrapped in. So instead of being go.pardot.com, it'll be go.company.com. The next question is what kind of email is this? You can send a HTML and text, or just a plain text email. Whenever Pardot sends an email, whether it's a template through an automation or through a list email, Pardot will always send 2 versions of the email. It'll send an HTML version and a text version. The recipient won't receive 2 emails. What they will receive whichever version of the email that the email server accepts from an external sender. So the purpose behind this is for deliverability's sake. So it ensures that if you are sending an email to a company that does not allow external senders to send, it doesn't allow the server to receive HTML emails from an external sender, you'll still get the text email for the text version through, or you can just send a plain text version of the email. Number 7 is pretty important. This is something that you may see on the exam. Just being aware of the available for functionality for email templates. So you've got 4 options here, and you can check or uncheck any of these. So one-to-one emails, list emails, auto-respond to your emails, and engagement program emails. One-to-one emails is going to be more sales centric. If you click one-to-one, what that means is that this template is available for use in Salesforce, in the actual Salesforce CRM for it becomes available for a salesperson or somebody operating in Salesforce to select this template to send an email to a leader contact. It's typically unchecked because they want to make sure that you're intending for this to be a sales available email. The other 3 here, list emails, autoresponder, and engagement program, you're basically, and this is also usually auto checked. What this means is that this email template, when published, will be available to select when building a list email, when adding be available as an action for an autoresponder on a form or a automation rule, or if you need to use this email template as part of a ongoing Engagement Studio program. So checking each of these boxes or unchecking them does have ramifications. So just being aware of what you're doing and what you're checking and unchecking is super important. So I'm going to jump into a little bit of the builder here real quick. I know that I don't have a ton of time, but I figured this is probably more beneficial than than trying to kind of just do screenshots. So when you need to get into Pardot, obviously you go into the app launcher, and then you see here Pardot email in the Lightning app. You see I have a template here that I published, but I want to show you kind of what the email builder looks like in Classic. Note that there is a newer email builder. However, it is unlikely that it's going to be on the exam because it's so new. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys had seen what the email builder looks like. This is a email. This is what the builder looks like. So once you're in there and you're building, you can click each of these elements here. These are images. This is a template, by the way. This is a pre-built template. Pardot gives you a bunch of pre-built email templates. As you need to go in here and make changes to images, you would click on the image here, and you can either use a hosted image from elsewhere. I don't recommend this, or you can upload. Click this to upload an image, or you can drag and drop it, and that will add it in here for this. It'll add it to your Pardot storage, and it'll make the image available for use across the Pardot Lightning app. You do have some advanced options, some styling that you can do to the image if you need to. You can adjust the height and the width. You can set the border, the horizontal and the horizontal and vertical spacing, and you can align left or align right for that image. And now here I'm clicking on the plain text here. So you have this thing that pops out here. You can make it bigger by pulling it forward. And now you can select this, and let's say you want this to be all italic. You want to delete certain parts of this and add more text. You need to edit this link. So you see that this hyperlink, this is hyperlinked. So let's click the hyperlink, and it pops out to ask me where it is. What kind of link is this? Is it a standard URL, or is it a anchor text? Is it a custom redirect? Am I linking to an email or an email preference, a file, a form, a landing page, or am I using my unsubscribe or resubscribe links? So if I'm just pulling a URL that's hosted from somewhere, it's gonna pre-fill the protocol. Always use HTTPS and enter. You then have the ability to do some styling to default underline yes or no, and you can also set the link color by entering a specific hex code. You can set the behavior to open in a new window, a pop-up window, the same window, and then you can also add more styling to that link as well if you need to. Let's say and then in the builder, you can go in and view the HTML version. I wish this existed in the new builder. I hope it comes back in some capacity. But if you find yourself interested in the nuts and bolts of the email and need to make some particular changes and you're comfortable in HTML, you do have that available to you. Next is the preview. So you click preview, and this shows you what this email looks like right now. If you have merge fields, if you have personalization and you need to test what that looks like, you have the ability to preview as a prospect. So if you were to select, for example, Barbara, and let's say that there's a merge field, there's not, but if there was, it would say hi, Barbara, if it was using the merge field for the first name. As with every email, you must go into the text and make sure that you have text version. If you update the HTML version, it will not auto update the text version. You do have to go in and hit sync from HTML for it to bring in the new version. You have the ability to add merge fields here. This is a drop down where if you need to add a merge field, let's say I'm going to add account number. Now you see you brought in recipient.account number. This is Handlebar's merge language, which is different from Pardot merge language, which has been phased out. And the last part I want to show you here, I realize that I'm very up against it time-wise. So if you have to drop, totally understand. But I've got a little bit more to talk through here. So when you go to the sending section, this is what you see. You can select the sender. You can select the email to use. You've got options to use for which sender you want to use. A general user is one you can freehand type. If there's a assigned user, for example, if this prospect record is assigned to a user, you can select assigned user as the sender, and it will programmatically send the email and it will appear as though it's coming from the person who owns that record. You can also do the account owner, or you can select a specific user in the org. If you hover over the email, it will give you a preview of what the email looks like that you're sending. And here's where you can also set the subject line. You can set it here. Advanced Subject Line Composer allows you to add merge field and dynamic content. It also allows you to add emojis. So if I need to add a couple emojis and a first name, recipient, let's see. I'm not seeing the first name. So let's just say title, recipient title. This is obviously a terrible subject line, but this is what you're able to do. You're able to add this dynamic content, add these merge fields to create a email template that will include their dynamic content and their personalization. Click publish the template, and now this email template is ready to view. All right, I'm going to jump back into this here. So we already talked about this. And I wanted to mention that once you do save a template, as I mentioned, since you can use these in creating a template and publishing, it makes it available to use in automations and completion actions. This is an example of an automation rule where you have these rules up here to set, and then anybody who matches this criteria, you can trigger an action to send an email. So I click send prospect email and then click the drop down, and this shows me the available template that is available, that's been set to be available for completion actions. And so anytime that a prospect meets the criteria of this automation rule, it will trigger an email to send to them. You can also do this on forms. So when you're building a form, the completion action, typically like a traditional use case would be a thank you, of like a follow-up for if someone fills out a form and you want to send them a thank you or some message to confirm that you received it. What'll happen is if you select that, anytime someone fills out the form, they'll receive an email confirming that you received the email and thanking them or whatever it is that needs to be in the autoresponder. This is what you'll see when you're building a list email. So we created a template. That's the first step. Now we need to build a list email. A lot of this is going to look familiar. So I'm going to kind of skip ahead to these parts down at the box. Everything up here, otherwise, we already covered, is content type and A/B test. Content type is there's a box here if it's been enabled for operational emails. If you choose to click the operational if you do turn on the operational email, what this means is that the email will bypass any recipients who have opted out already from your emails, not hard bounces, only opt-outs. Operational email has a very narrow use case, and I'll just kind of jump ahead to that now. Operational emails are non-marketing emails that belong to one of these categories: shipping information, invoices, order confirmations, password resets, critical system changes, any kind of legally required notification. It cannot and should not be used for marketing purposes. So if the email has a CTA in it, or if it has a link to something that you're trying to get them to do, odds are pretty good that it's not an operational email. Operational emails shouldn't. There are some use cases where there should be a link, but generally speaking, it's more notification centric. It's more, this is something that we have to tell you. Go do this. But not necessarily a click here to download this white paper or whatever. There's no, that falls outside of the accepted policy. Yeah, that is not allowed. When you are building a list email, you need to make sure to select your lists. This is a sending list and a suppression list. You can select several lists here to add and suppress, and several lists to suppress. If you how that works is if you add a suppression list, anybody who is on both the suppression and the send list will not receive the email. So if you add a bunch of lists here, and let's say you've got 500 people, then you add 2 suppression lists, this total number of mailable prospects will go down because there's people who match both of these lists. Similar to what I just said before, where you can select a sender, you can use a general sender, you can use any other kind of sender that you need. Add that email address in here and the name. If you need a reply to, how a reply to would work is that you would, if somebody literally responds to the email, instead of going to you, the sender, it would go to an alternate email address. When you are in the list email and you have 2 options, you can either schedule it to send in the future. So when you hit schedule, you'll get the option to select a date and a time. And if you do that, it will send according to the date and time zone that is set in your account. You're not able to stagger sends based on time zones. Another option is that you can send it now. The second part of list email sending is setting the subject line, which we talked about before. You can set completion actions on the email itself, where if someone opens the email, clicks the email, or unsubscribes, you can trigger actions to happen, add them to a list, notify a user, etc. So this is at a per email level. This isn't a kind of global automation like you would have with an automation role. You can also save it if you need to save it and you're not ready. That would then go into draft. But if you are ready to schedule and you're ready to go, you would then hit send or schedule, and it would either send immediately or it would get scheduled. I'm going to kind of run through these last really quickly. I apologize. The last part here is around list email reports. So you go into part out reports, emails, and then hit list emails. This is a table that you would see. You are able to customize the columns that you see here. So if it has a checkbox, that means that it is there. You can uncheck it and it will remove. What you can do is you can also add a filter. So if you only want to see emails that meet a specific send date or time, or a specific campaign or a specific subject line, then you can do that as well. The third option up here is that you can then export this if you need the CSV document. And the last part of this here is the email template reporting. It's not as flexible. So when you go to look at email templates, you can filter by a specific keyword or tags. However, it's only going to give you a handful of columns here to review the data. So the number of delivered, hard bounces, soft bounces, opens, clicks, and your click-through rate. You can filter by send. So if you only want to see emails sent today, yesterday, over a period of a certain number of quarters, etc., you would then be able to do that here. Like I said, it's not as flexible as the other one, but it is functional, and it will give you that reporting. I know that we're over, and I actually, unfortunately, I'm not able to take questions right now. I don't know if Laura, if you're able to, but I do have to jump. Thank you guys so much. Feel free to stick around if Laura is able to.
Yep.
But thank you guys so much. And I will be sending out the recording in the next day or two.
Awesome. I'm happy to take questions. I have some time. So if anybody has any in the chat, feel free. And let me know. I'm happy to take some free form questions too, if there's something that, wasn't about forms or wasn't about emails, or if there's something we talked about last week or whatnot. I'm happy to do questions. In the chat, I put a link to our next session, which is next week, next Wednesday. We're going to talk about lead management and also Engagement Studio. So Engagement Studio is super fun. It's kind of where everything kind of comes together. Like you have website forms, you've built emails. Now, how do you set up nurture programs? Engagement Studio is a great way to do that. And then lead management covers a lot of things like it covers how to push, so you get somebody in from a form, and how to push them into Salesforce as a lead if they're not already there, or how to. We'll talk about a lot of things basically, and lead management will cover a lot of ground. But yeah, happy to take any questions. Link for next week, I will drop it again. Is here. Okay. I heard that Pardot is going to merge, be part of Marketing Cloud account. Okay, so Pardot is getting a new name. It's getting called Marketing Cloud Account Engagement. I'm not super fond of the name. Pardot is not going away. Pardot is making strides to get what Salesforce calls on platform, where it's just going to be like an app with more of it living on Salesforce instead of being a separate app. But Pardot is not going away. But Pardot has always been considered inside the suite of Marketing Cloud products. So Marketing Cloud used to be ExactTarget, and they bought like a bunch of companies, Pardot being one. It's not being merged. It's not going away. It's always been one of many marketing offerings from Salesforce under the Marketing Cloud umbrella. If you go to the Marketing Cloud website, like Pardot is a line item in their menus there. So it's not going away. It's just getting a new name. If your edition does not offer Lightning app, it will be difficult to pass the exam if using Classic. Okay, so you have access to the Pardot Lightning app today. It's not edition specific. There are going to be, for next week, okay, I'll ask Ben to double check the registration for that. Thank you very much that it's closed. We'll see about getting more seats or something like that. Please check back. Okay, so Pardot Lightning is just an app. They are actually doing away with the Pardot Classic app in Salesforce. And it's just a Salesforce app, just like any other Salesforce app. Like you can create the sales app or the, I don't know, you can create like a finance app for different departments. It's just an app. And it just has like different menus and things, comes pre-filled with like, here's your Pardot tabs, go turn your tabs on, things like that. It's just an app. If you have a Salesforce, like a real Salesforce login, you have access to the Lightning app. You just need to ask your Salesforce admin to configure it. It's super easy. My session last week had links on like where to go get it. Document states available in professional, enterprise performance, and unlimited editions with Pardot. Those are all the editions. There are no like editions where the Pardot app does not. The Pardot Lightning app is available to everyone. So they changed the names for different things, but it's available to everyone. The difference between Lightning and Classic is menus. Menus are in different places. Menus are, so like in Classic, you'll see the view of like on the left-hand column, there's marketing, and then inside marketing, there's like segmentation lists. In Lightning app, you have a tab for prospects, and then you get a menu and segmentation lists as part of that menu. So it's in different places, but they're all the same things. Pardot has gone through different names of their versions over the years. Don't worry about it too much. The Pardot Lightning app is available for everyone. It's just a Salesforce app. I will say that the Pardot Classic app is getting retired in October of this year. That is different. pi.pardot.com, which is what we talk about as Pardot Classic, is not going away. You can still log into it. The Classic app is literally pi.pardot.com iframed into a Salesforce window. You're not going to miss it. So the Classic app is going away, and you'll only be able to install and use the Pardot Lightning app. So if you want to use Pardot Lightning and some of the features like multiple business units and switchers, you'll need to install Pardot Lightning. One thing we've seen in Lightning is that we can't share file locations or links to email drafts like we can in pi.pardot.com. I hate that. It is absolutely a limitation. It has gotten better. You can, make sure that you open it in a new tab and not just like right click on the link and paste it. That's when you're like copying the wrong links. But it is not a great experience. It is much better than it used to be. But the first version of Pardot Lightning was miserable to use, and it's fine. Like, I can definitely use it. I have a very hard muscle memory of like where I should go to remember where things are. So I do find myself logging into Classic, pi.pardot.com, to share links for exactly that reason. And you're just doubling down on folder structure, yes. Yeah, absolutely. But Pardot Lightning is getting better day by day. I guess release by release. Yeah. Other questions? Did I miss anything? If I missed your question, please pop it in again. Can't, yeah. All right. Well, our attendance has dropped quite a bit. So let me do this. We are going to, I will check with Ben to either expand registration for next week's session, or, stay tuned and we'll have it recorded, of course. Please hit me up on Twitter. Again, I'm Pardot.pro on Twitter. Send me a message there. And Ben will be sharing the recording in this same link where you joined this session. He'll post the recording there, and you should get an email with a link to the recording when it's available, probably the next day or so. All right, everybody, we'll see you next week. And let me know in the meantime, see you on LinkedIn or see you on Twitter. Let me know questions. Bye, everyone.